Today I'm going to tell you guys about the cringiest high school crush story you will ever hear and how that led to me getting dumped. So before I get into the really cringy stuff, I'm going to start off by laying down the background of how I met this woman. I first met her at a football game, actually. I used to be a very awkward and antisocial kid. I would sit back in the bleachers, and like when the touchdowns happened, I would just be really quiet as everyone else raised their hand and they were going crazy and stuff. And I remember after one of the games, I had gone there and, I might have been high too. Like I used to smoke for the peer pressure and that sort of stuff. And the game had just ended, and I was walking out from the bleachers, and I found myself in the parking lot. And especially because back then I used to smoke so much, I was probably looking for my car. And then all of a sudden, I see a kick just like shoot up in the air in front of me. I'm like, whoa, And back then I used to get bullied, so I was probably also thinking like maybe this is some sort of bully like coming at me or something. So then I'm on guard, and then I see this girl, and she's like laughing. And she has her friend, she's next to her and everything like that. And then she's like, "You don't know me?" And I was like... And then I said her name, and then she was like, yeah, it's me. And then we just chopped her up real quick. I think we said like a few like different like sentences, and like we laughed back and forth and whatever. End of conversation. I go home. I'm around 16. I have like this brick phone. Like my texting game, bottom of the barrel. My everything, bottom of the barrel. I hadn't really started talking to girls at that point, and she was basically the first girl that I had talked to. Then what happened was the next day, I showed up to math class, and I still remember it. She sat right next to me, and because I was there, I was sitting in my seat, and then she just came up and she sat next to me, and I didn't really know how to interpret it, but I felt good about it. I was like, oh, okay. There's actually a girl that's interested in me now. And so I remember, like, as the weeks went along, I sort of started talking to her, like, what her interest, what sort of music she listened. And back then, I was a really big, like, basically a trickster. Like, I did all these antics in class to get people's attention, to get people to, like me in a way. And so that's basically what I did. I would just write these, like, little quirky jokes, and try to be flirtatious about it, like, this is how it's going to be, like, when I finally kiss you, and, like, all this really other just quirky sort of stuff. And that went on for a few months. And the thing with this girl was, she had a boyfriend when I first met her. And she was sort of known to the class, the school, if you will, that she used to, like, get around, if you know what I mean, if you catch my drift. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I was like, oh, yeah, she might get around, but for me, she'll be all mine. Right? Like, and somehow I would convince her, and I would be her savior, and all that sort of other shit that I had going on. And so I started talking to her, and I remember the first night, a few weeks after that, I sent her a text, and I'm like, hey, what are you doing? And she responded, she was like, I'm with this guy right now. and then I was just like, oh, but it would be so much better if you were with me. To which she, I think she responded with like a winky face or something like that. And like the relationship, if you can even call it that, started like developing a little bit more to where we both like just said all this funny stuff back and forth and things like that. Fast forward 6 months, right? I've been talking to this girl, and I had all these little cues, right? I had a Colombian Mailman as my neighbor. He used to sell me weed, and he'd be like, hey, buddy. He basically gave me the rundown on girls. He was like, hey, buddy, if you want girls, these are all the things you need to do. And he basically gave me a list. He was like, look, you need to hit them back up. I think he said, like, 2.5 minutes after you receive a text. He said, any sooner than that and she thinks you're desperate, any later than that and she thinks you're not interested. So I would be there by the phone when she texted me back, and I would be, like, counting it off. I'd be like, 1, 2, 3... I'd sit by my phone for like 2.5 minutes, and then and meanwhile I'd be thinking about my response and everything, and then I just, boom, send her something. And so I was doing that. I was going back and forth with my Colombian Mailman at times. Sometimes she'd even text me something, I wouldn't know how to respond. I'd hit him up, be like, yo, what do I say back to this? And he'd sort of give me the runaround. And so he would tell me stuff like that. He would give me like sort of plots and like ideas of dates, to the point where he even said like, He even bought me like I'm not a drinker. I've never been. He bought me like this mango rum, and he was like, "Yeah, dude, just give this to her, and she'll love you. She'll literally fall in love with you." And it was like something out of like some sort of fairy tale story. Like, you know, you go and you try to save her, and you just hand her the rum, and all of a sudden she just like hops on you, and she's like, "Yes, please have me." And so the whole time for months I had stored this mango rum in my car actually had a compartment, you know, the typical compartment that's between the seats, and like I would store it in the bottom, and I'm 16 driving this car, and I would stack all sorts of stuff on it. And then my smart ass is like, okay, so I'm gonna pull out the drawer and I'll put my weed in there, and I close the weed, and then I close on the alcohol. And so I'm just riding around town like this for months on end, and it never even really dawned on me like, yo, this is not a secure spot to put drugs and paraphernalia, right? So I do this for a few months, and meanwhile I'm texting her, and then comes the first time that I actually like set up a way to like meet her. And what happened was there was some sort of dance, and she hits me up, and she's like, you know, I'm going to this dance, and I was like, oh, I'll be there. I go to the dance, and beforehand, like, I had prepared myself by, like, swagging, like, half a cup of Listerine, because I was like, yo, tonight's the night I get my first kiss. It's happening tonight. So I go there, I'm brushing my teeth, half a cup of Listerine, gargling, you know, spit it out. I go there, and every single dude who's there, who talks to me, is like, dude, your breath smells like ass. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, dude, it smells terrible. Like, you need to get like a mile radius away from me because we cannot be near you right now. And at that point, I was sort of just like really, really nervous and socially anxious. So I stood at the court of the dance. It was a dark room. I think there was like a disco ball. I saw my friends out dancing on the stage. There was kind of a stage. And I was just like that guy who, in some ways, that protected me because I could just put my hands in my pockets and act really cool and just be like, yeah. But inside, behind that facade, I was like, holy crap, I don't know what to do right now. And so I was doing all these moves, and I see her. And I see her in the middle of the dance floor, and she's dancing with another guy. Not the boyfriend. She had broken up with her boyfriend at the time. And I see her dancing with another guy. Before I get into the boyfriend thing, my Colombian Mailman, when she broke up with her boyfriend, I hit him up, and I was like, what's a really good line that I can just come in and, like, get her, right? Like, right now. And he was like, I think at the time, like, I was suggesting to him stuff. And I told him, and I used to listen to J. Cole, and J. Cole had this line like, one man's trash is another man's treasure. So I hit my Colombian Mailman up. He's like, I got the perfect line. I got this. I know exactly how I'm going to get this girl. And so I put down, I texted her, and I was like, one man's trash is another man's. I was about to hit send, and then my Colombian Mailman actually responded to my text, and he was like, don't say that. And I was like, oh, erase. Anyway, we're at this dance, you know, and I see her, and she's dancing with one of the other cool kids, you know, and I see her, she's sort of grinding on him, she cranes her neck back, and he kisses her. And I'm just standing, like, devastated. I'm just like, the last 4 months, I've been talking to this girl every day. I've been dreaming about kissing her. I've been dreaming about this relationship I've had in my mind this whole time, and this deep connection I'm going to have with a woman for the first time in my life. And then I see her kiss this man, and I feel like I'm nothing. Like I'm absolutely worthless at that point. So she kisses him. After the dance ends, she's walking back, and she sees me. And she smiles, and she comes up to talk to me. And I'm just there, and I'm like smiling with her and everything like that, and this, that. And we sort of reached a point, and even though I feel a certain way about it, this is getting back to the cringiness that I said is going to come back at the end for the big surprise. I was like, you want to dance? And this is a behavioral pattern and a trait that I think we all have, right? Like you can call it the nice person trait. You can call it like, you know, being socially in tune. But in reality, it's like you not being true to yourself. You not being true to your feelings. So I was like, you want to dance? We go. to the middle of the dance floor. I doubt that I even guided her at this point. But she would probably be like, hey, all right, let's go to the middle of the dance floor. We're dancing, right? This is like probably my second or third time dancing. I know how to sway my hips at this point. I'm like undulating side to side. I know how to rotate a little bit. Middle of the dance comes. She cranes her neck back. And in my mind, you know, I had just seen her do this with this guy, like, to get a kiss. But I didn't connect the dots, right? I saw her, like, craning her neck back and smile at me. And I just, like, smile back. And she just there for, like, 20 seconds, like this. Craned back. And I'm like, in retrospect, I'm like, God damn, your neck must have hurt. Like, you were out here dancing, shaking your butt, and you're like this? Like, anyhow, she cranes her neck back. I don't kiss her. Immediately, right when she turns back around, it dawns on me, I was like, oh my goodness, she wanted me to kiss her. Right? Now, in retrospect now, would I have kissed her? Hell no. Not in a million years. You just kiss that man, you think I'm going to put my lips? No. No, thank you. I'm good. Back then, yeah, I would have. And that in of itself created so much shame. I was like, dang it, I missed my cue. That was my cue. I had my go sign. I didn't go. It was all over. And I started ruminating on that. I went back to my house that night and I was like, oh, I missed my opportunity. That was my chance. I was in shambles. I was in shatters. I was like, first of all, the girl I had a crush with danced and kissed another dude. That made me feel crappy. Then I failed on initiative. That made me feel crappy. I was like, my whole life is over. 1 month later, I hit her up. She pulls up to my place, picks me up. We go up this little hill. She has a friend in the back of her car. And we smoke. Then she says, well, she drives back down. We have like some little conversation or whatever. Then we drive back down and she's about to drop me off. She stops like 5 blocks before my place. And the music's going and she turns to me and she's just silent. Right? Like it was clear to me at that point. Like, oh, and I already run down the situation with a smile. She gave me that smile and everything. I was like, oh, it's go time. And this is something that my friends used to always tell me, like, especially my Colombian Mailman, he would be like, yo, it's 80-20. It's 80-20. In other words, the man goes 80, the woman goes 20. So you got to lean in 80, and she comes in 20. And back then, in my mind, I was so anticipating this for so long. Right? I had spent months in my mind being like, my first kiss, my first kiss, my first case, that I went 120. And I straight up remember it because it was like, I saw a little hint. I saw like 1%. Like she was like, this? And I just went in there like a shark. And basically swallowed her face. I was like, ah. So I basically like, I don't know, like I think I engorged her mouth. I think I'm like, ah. You know, this. And then the kiss ends. I think I like pull away and she's just there smiling, like as if like everything's okay and nothing's really happened. And I was like, this was fun and this was good and this that. I slammed the door. Keep in mind, I'm high as hell at this point. And I do this. I raise my arms and I start chanting, yes, yes, yes. And I start running down and I was high. So there's 5 blocks down, there's another house. Which is mine. I don't go to mine. I go to the first house. So I go right adjacent to the car and I start knocking on the door. Meanwhile, I've just been running saying, yes, 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 yes. Start knocking on the door, thinking my mom's going to answer. And then I look up and I realize this isn't my house. So then I run back and I keep running down the street. I look back and her car is still there and she's like watching all this as I'm chanting down the street like this. And I go back. And then I remember laying in my bed that night with the most euphoric high. Like, I did it. Like the last 5 months, I finally got my first kiss. Like we're getting married now. Like it's over. Like I'm just going to put the ring on her finger and it's game over. And the next day, I open up my Facebook feed, and her friend posts on her Facebook, and I saw the post, and it was like this little like segment of what was going on in her mind throughout that situation, and then it was like, oh my god, what is he doing? Ha 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 ha. And I just read that, and I was just like utterly shattered. It was like, wow, I really fucked up my first kiss. And I felt terrible about that. I felt terrible about that for many weeks, actually. And then the relationship sort of progressed. I think I kept on putting off the whole dating thing, right? Because I was like, I was trying to build rapport. Eventually, I built rapport so much that after 6 months, she had to move. It was like an instantaneous thing. That day, she was moving. Didn't know about it. She didn't hit me up, anything like that. So I throw out one last cue ball, and I'm like, and I think I say, like, hey, let's meet tonight. No response. She moves. I hit her back up a month later, and keep in mind, I'm 16. I'm horny. I'm like, hey. And she's like, hey. And she's like, can I get some pictures? And she sends me a picture of a tiger, which in retrospect, it's funny. At the time, I was like, this is over with, right? Fast forward, year later, I see her appear at the school, right? Taps my shoulder. I turn around. She's there. I was like, what happened? Like, you moved. And initially she hugged me, and I was a little shocked and whatever. And I was like, okay, I'll talk to you later. And I walked away. Later, I found out that her interpretation of that situation was I was super, like, she felt uncomfortable because she could see that I was uncomfortable, like that I didn't want to be approached. Which I was just in a shock. I was like, the ghost just appeared here, and like, what do I do now? So anyway, that happens, and I start talking to her again. And this is my junior year of high school, and we've been talking for a few months now. Things elevate past kissing, and all that. And I hit her up, and I'm like, hey, it was about homecoming at the time, and I'm like, hey, how about we go to homecoming together? And she's like, yeah, I'd love to. So she tells me about like this green dress she's gonna wear. She's gonna wear this green dress, and I want to match that. So I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna buy me a green tie, right? And I hate green. It's like, for me, it's the worst color in this world, with the exception of nature. But I would never wear green. It's just not a color that I've ever liked. And so I started wearing this green tie, and I was like, yeah, we're gonna look good together and everything like that. I pull up to her place. And I remember it because like her grandpa was on the porch and just giving me like this mean eye, just like, and I was like, just like, picked her up. She came in and she was like, yeah, don't mind him. And I was like, why? And she was like, because he's racist. And I was like, oh. He's like, but I'm not black. He's like, no, he just hates everyone. I was like, okay. And this gets to a common thing that seems to reappear in different relationships. And just a quick life tip for anyone out there: if you end up dating somebody with a racist family member, just say no. just wipe it out of your mind and just be like, oh, this doesn't look like it's going to work out. Because these things will keep on reappearing, right? Like, it's something sort of synchronistic. Like, the things that end a relationship are going to be the same things that end it over and over again. So you just need to keep a keen eye for that. In fact, I'm just considering from now on, first conversation I have with a woman would just be like, hey, is your family racist? And if she answers yes, I say, hey, just take a step away, move on. Unless you actually, and it's a very rare case scenario, I think, unless you actually see, like, you know what, she's open-minded and she's willing to separate that part of herself from her identity and move on, right? But if she's not willing to do that, then maybe you just need to be upfront and be like, hey, you know what, this isn't going to work out because I'm not white. So do that. Driving down, I take her to this fancy Italian restaurant. At the Italian restaurant, I'm thinking here, I'm going to spend the most money possible so obviously she'll like me more, right? Like it's an equation, right? The more money you spend, the more she likes you, etc. We order that. She gets like French shrimp fettuccine or something. I think she takes 2 bites of it throughout the whole time. In my mind, I was like, yo, why is she not eating? Come to find out later that, like, women have small appetites. And also, she could have just felt like insecure, right? Like it's a date. Maybe she didn't feel comfortable eating from me, whatever. But I was thinking about this throughout the whole time. Girl I've been talking to for a few months starts walking by. My back is to the end of the restaurant, and I'm facing the door. And the girl I've been talking to, I talked to her for a few months before, this other girl came back. She starts walking in, and it's homecoming, so she's dressed up too. And in my mind, I'm like, yo, I'm going to put on this super badass look. I'm going to make it look like, like I've got all the women, and like I've dated all these other women, and like, that I have game. So I do this. I'm like this, and then I start doing this. Right? Like I go into hermit mode and turtle mode in front of this girl, thinking that when she sees this, she's going to put 2 and 2 together. She's going to be like, oh, he's obviously being a turtle because he's trying to avoid a girl that he broke up with that is now walking past us. This is the sort of shit and antics that I would play in my mind for social approval back in high school. And I think, you might not have had it as severe, but you definitely, I think all of us have been through some little element of that. A lot of high school cringe going on there. Meanwhile, in retrospect, what's strangest of all of this is she didn't say anything, right? Like, I'm like, how and why did this, like, why did she just watch me, like, go into, like, full-on hermit mode and, like, not bring up anything and we just continue a regular conversation? Far be it from me to answer that, but we go to the homecoming, and at this point, there's been some few, like, awkward silences throughout the night and whatever. And obviously all the contests that you guys have had up to this point. And I'm basically like, actually, quick shout out. Please, if you're enjoying this so far, hit that subscribe and that like button. It goes a long way for me to create this content. And give me some of your thoughts about basically what I'm sharing with you guys. Do you guys have similar experiences out there? Because I'd actually be really interested in hearing about your own experiences. So at this point, we're there at the homecoming. I don't ask her to dance, and it's because no one else is dancing. And so I think to myself, hey, no one else is dancing, we can't dance, right? There might be like 1 or 2 couples. And basically she goes off and she talks to a bunch of people, and she finds out there's like a party going on or something like that. Now all of a sudden she wants to go to the party. Conversation's been dead for like 10 minutes. Nothing's been going on. She comes up to me and she's like, hey, I want to leave. And, I'm like, I'm not really processing it yet, that I had been hyping this up, anticipating it the whole time. In the back of my mind, I was like, after this homecoming dance, we're going to go back to my car, and I'm about to get to business. We're going to start rocking the boat. And that was in the back of my mind throughout the whole time. And so all of a sudden, the ship sank, right? Ain't no boat no more. And I was like, okay. Walk back to my car, drive her to the car. Her car was parked somewhere else, so I drove her to the car, and she's like, yeah, I had really fun. Quick kiss, she's out of here. And then the wheel starts spinning for me, and I'm like, what just happened? Like, why? This, that, and complete utter loss. I end up getting invited to some party by a friend. I go to that friend, and I met this girl at the party. Not really anything like romantic, but she was like in the same sort of, like, I was in a canopy, and she just came and lay by me, and I was just thinking to myself, like, yeah, this isn't so bad. Like, I got a girl next to me. Like, I don't really need to be with her. Why would I waste my time, right? So meanwhile, I go take out my phone and I write this 500-word, just spiteful message. I mean, the worst things you could imagine saying to a girl. And I was like, you're this, da, da, da. And I go out to my buddy, because, sometimes you come from an emotional place. So you're like, you want your buddy to check you. So I go up to my buddy and I'm like, hey man, what do you think if I sent her this? And I'm like this. He's like, oh, like, I could see his face when he read the first line. It was just like, he was like, I don't know, man. I think, is it over? And I was like, yeah, it's over. And he was like, it's really over. He hands me back the phone, and I'm just like, send. And that basically ended me. And in retrospect, I say she dumped me, but if you look at it, it's mutual, right? It's the pull, push, me hitting the X, because I reached out 2 weeks later. I was like, hey, how have you been? And she's like, good, and this, and she responds, and she's like, I don't think it's good for us to, like, in a sort of like a friendly way, like be like that anymore. I was like, okay. And I didn't really say anything about it. Meanwhile, for the next few months, I just sort of like, not bullied, but like made it very physically clear, like, hey, I don't want to be anywhere near you or around you. She comes out one time, I have my buddy next to me in my car, and he's like saying these bad things to her, and I'm not really doing anything to stop it. So she comes up, and she drives and crashes into my car. That is the moral of the story. No, I'm just kidding. She like lightly taps the back of my car to be like, hey, stop messing with me like that. And then she like screams at my buddy, and then she says, hey, you need to stop being a jerk. And that's the end of that story. And I wanted to share all that because I think we all have moments in our life where we're like, yo, I did some really cringeworthy behavior there. Like, and you got to ask yourself, like, where did that come from? What was the stem of all that? Like, why did I do that, right? And why did I behave that way? And it gets back to something that's common to all of us, right? We all have insecurities. We all deal on some level with inferiority. Now, if you got a complex, if you got a really deep split in your emotional state, if you had some really deep childhood trauma, I think you're going to have some more severe feelings of inferiority than other cases. But what you realize is that if you don't process that, if you don't deal with that, then that inferiority is going to start to like spark fires in your life. It's just going to keep on popping up in your mind, and you're going to behave in certain ways out of those spaces of inferiority. And you realize that it's not really going to go away anytime soon. But what happens is as you grow, as you mature, as you become more conscious of it, you stop behaving in those behavioral patterns, right? You might have a little voice from time to time, but when the voice comes up, you're like, okay, I don't have to act on it, right? I might have that feeling to send that 5 or more text. I don't really have to send it, right? And that's sort of the process that goes on. But in order to get that, this is what you need to do. And I think this is going to be helpful for anyone out there who's been in similar shoes. Maybe you're in a similar shoe right now, or maybe you're 40 or 50 and you still have some of these sort of things going on in your mind. Like, it doesn't have to be as big as like balling up as a turtle, but you still have these little things. So this is what you got to do. You need to start exhibiting behavioral traits, doing things in your life that is going to run counterpart to all that, right? Don't go up and be like, hey, she did all this sort of stuff. In order for me to navigate that, I'm going to tell myself I'm the most comfortable, badass mofo out there. Because that ain't going to work, because now you're still on the emotional plane. If you get caught on the emotional plane, trying to convince yourself, trying to tell your unconscious, hey, I just need to be this, and I need to be that, or I feel like this. It's like telling yourself, like, maybe you feel stupid, and you tell yourself, hey, I'm going to feel like I'm smart. That's not going to do anything for you, buddy. In fact, that's just going to make it worse because you're just lying to yourself. What you got to do is this. Be honest with yourself. Be like, you know what? I feel insecure with women because I'm 16 years old and I'm inexperienced. Or because I'm 40 years old and my past relationships have gone like this. Same repeat pattern. Be honest with yourself. Once you can start to be honest with yourself, you can ask yourself, what are some things that I can do objectively, actions that I can take in my life that can push against that can make me exhibit patterns that aren't in line with how I feel, right? If you start to say that, and don't have it come from a place of feeling. Don't be like, hey, I'm going to start to stand tall, better posture, approach women, things like this, to become better at dating. I'm going to do this because I'm bad. Don't tell yourself because I'm bad. Tell yourself, I'm going to do this because I want to be better with women, because I want to date this girl, because of whatever, right? If you set it up like, hey, I'm trying to create I desire this. I want this. If you set it up like that, you're going to have success. You're going to have success because now you're in a creative function, right? You're setting it up to where you're trying to get objective desires and needs met. But if you set it up to where it was like for me, where you're coming from a place of insecurity and feelings, and you're doing all this, all the bravado, all the showmanship, you know, and like navigating the texting and all the rules and getting caught up in the social anxiety because you're trying to disprove something to yourself, right? But you don't recognize that all you really need to do is do objective steps to create something or accomplish something, then, my friend, you're going to be stuck there for a long time. And I'm thankful that now, at the age of 29, that I'm in a much better place with a much better standing with women, and I don't have to worry about this nearly as much, right? Like I said, you might still have that voice from time to time, but you can navigate it. Hey, I appreciate you guys if you stuck with me throughout this video. Please subscribe to that channel, hit that like button, leave a comment about any possible similar experiences, and I'm going to be back with more content because I love doing this. Talk to you guys next time.